A very good morning, 24 minutes past 8 o'clock. I'm Arnold Sagawa. You're still watching Morning at NTV. Let's shift of gear and delve into the conversation around some fintech, some laws here and there, commercial law to be more specific. As I understand it, the National Payment Systems Law is almost in effect. To help us unpack this particular one, we do have Brian Kalule, is with the FITSPA. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I was just going on about your tie earlier on. Where do I get me one of those?
Well, I hope it won't land you in trouble, but I can offer you mine.
Oh, okay, okay. So let's just touch this the whole National Payment Systems Law. If you're to explain it to an ordinary Joe like Arnold here, who doesn't know the first thing about constitutional law or any law, how would you just put it in under a minute?
Okay, thank you. In short, a payment system is the system that enables payments, transfer of money, and settling of transactions. So if you send me mobile money, there will be people at the back offices of MTN who move the money from your account to my account. So that electronic process is what we call a payment system.
Right.
So this law is to regulate those payment systems. So a payment system is much wider. It even includes bank systems where a bank sends money from your account to my account. So that whole ecosystem is what we call a payment system. So even cards actually, cards are payment by cards. So there's an electronic process by which that happens. So that's called a payment system.
Now, with the talk just a few days ago of having mobile money also regulated by maybe the central bank, do you get the sense that that was timely at the moment to have mobile money also being regulated away from this being a UCC issue? Because we're talking about a lot of money here.
Actually, if you're talking about payments law generally, Uganda is one of the few countries in the world which wasn't actually regulating it. So it was very timely. And for mobile money especially, because it plays a very crucial part of the financial system. You talked about it being a UCC issue, but it's actually a financial sector issue. The statistics show that 50% of Uganda's GDP moves through mobile money, as opposed to the normal banking system.
50%.
Yeah, so it poses a great systemic risk to the financial sector. So I think it was timely that it should be regulated, 50%.
Wow. Fintech, definitely something that you're very passionate about.
Yes, I am.
When it comes to many of the fintech solutions, the biggest issue that we've had in the past is adoption. You know, it's one thing to come up with a big idea, but when it comes to adoption, it has taken quite a while. You know, something as simple as even swiping, as you're paying for your groceries at the supermarket. How do we hasten the process of adoption? Okay, the legislation is now in place, great. How do we then hasten adoption going forward? I bring this up because of COVID-19. You know, on one end,
I was going to that.
Yes, on one end, we're being told that the virus can even stay on plastics for quite a while. Money, you know, all these physical elements. If we're paying by cashless means, we wouldn't be maybe having this conversation. So how do we hasten that adoption?
I think the evolution is going to be organic. I mean, the trend was really changing. I think you can agree with me that over the years, the number of people who are adopting transferring money electronically has been increasing. That's how technology evolves. It's a very slow process. But now with the things like COVID, I think it's just going to hasten what was going to happen anyway. It's just going to collapse the timeline in which that evolution was going to happen. It was going to happen at one stage, maybe 10 years, 15 years. But when calamities like COVID strike, then it just shortens the process. So I'm very hopeful that actually we're going to see a lot of increase in the number of persons that adopt these electronic payments.
The other thing that really strikes me is talk of blockchain, because, well, there's a word that is loved a lot in this particular space, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies. Half the people, that's a conversation for another day. But regulating something as wide as cryptocurrencies that people are yet to even grasp, even at a regulator kind of a point, you know, level. How do we get there? I bring this up because a particular central bank in East Africa, I was there a few years ago, and they started an in-house committee to just grasp the technicalities of algorithms and machine learning and things like cryptocurrency. For someone like you who is in the fintech space, that cross-section of fintech and maybe the law, just give me a sense of where we are as a country.
Well, actually, you brought me to a very important point in the National Payments Act. It has a provision, what they call a regulatory sandbox, where if you have an innovative financial product or financial service, you can go and test it in the market without you being licensed for 6 months. You go test it out and see if it picks steam or if it will work. Then if it doesn't,
interesting. What if
then you pull it out?
I use it for 6 months, I get people's money and I run off.
Well, you'll be under the approval of the Bank of Uganda, the central bank. They first have to approve your experiment, and then they will provide oversight over it. So in a way, it's controlled. But I would think the problem with blockchain and cryptocurrencies is the regulators here have, well, I don't want to say failed, they have refused to accept it as a valid form of transacting. They say it's illegal, it's not a known currency. So, but I would think if I was on the other side, I was the innovative person, I would try it out under this new law and say, look guys, I have something very innovative. Just give me 6 months, I try it out, if it works, then you see how it goes.
You then mentioned something that's quite massive. If the regulator is not very open to some of these ideas, yet Canada on the other hand is talking about having a sort of a currency running concurrently to the Canadian dollar, which is actually backed by a cryptocurrency issued by the Central Bank of Canada. That leaves me wondering if we're waiting for the whole world to move forward and then we say, oh yeah, by the way, we can also do this, or are we being proactive or we're still being reactive?
No, we're being reactive, and I think sometimes in life it's the safe thing to do. You see how it will work out in other ways, then see if you can jump on the bandwagon or you can stay.
But is that who we are? Are we the safe lads, who sit back?
Largely, so yes, I would say yes, because actually when you look at most of these laws, they've been tried and elsewhere. They've been tried and tested, and they have worked, and now we're adopting them. As I mentioned, Uganda was one of the few countries that didn't have the payments law. So I think it's who we are.
Okay, moving forward, what's your take on much of the weight now, regulatory-wise, being taken from the UCC? Again, I'm concentrating on the mobile side of things, the digital side of things, maybe towards the central bank. Well, what's your take on that?
No, I think it's a very good initiative for two reasons. This is finance we are dealing with, and the central bank is a specialist regulator in that. They understand finance more than the UCC. The UCC can regulate the technical bits. Does the platform, are you using compliant technology? Are you using compliant equipment? They can do that part. But the financial aspect of it, the systems, when is a transaction deemed to be complete, that kind of stuff. I think that's territory for the central bank, and I think it's a very good initiative. They are more suited to understand and regulate it.
Do the legislators understand your job?
No, why do you want to put me in trouble?
No, I bring this up because I wouldn't say I'm big on code, but what I'm studying now is something looking at getting transcripts of central banks, and you run them through a code, and it gives you the polarity and the subjectivity of the central bank's communication or the transcript. Now, trying to explain that to a few people might be a bit of a problem. What you're explaining is arguably even tougher. So that brings me to the question, do the legislators who have to pass this bill understand your job?
Well, the beauty about the bill passing process is...
I don't, Brian, you refuse to answer with a yes or no.
I'll come to the answer eventually.
Yeah.
Lawyers never have yes or no answers. There's always an explanation.
You're very sophisticated lads, I can tell from the suit.
There are always explanations. But the beauty with the process of passing a legislation like this one is that it's a consultative process. So we went to Parliament about 3 months ago, and they were asking us, okay, you guys, you say you're fintechs, but what do you do? What is fintech? So we had to take them through the process that you see. Fintech are the guys who sit in the back offices and make money move, and they provide the technology to the banks, to the MTNs of this world, mobile money. So that's who we are, and this is what we do. So you explain to them, then they got it. And then, of course, if there were issues with certain provisions of the law, we raised that, and thankfully, actually, most of them have been considered. So I can't really say. Well, and it's natural, you can't know everything. There are things about your job I don't know, but I ask questions. And if I get explanations, then yeah, I can say I understand them.
Well, what you do is you look in the camera. My job is very easy. You just look in the camera and you speak. Mine is quite easy. Let's talk about that issue that came out, I think it was earlier on this week or just last week, of unclaimed money on these mobile money platforms. And as a lawyer, is this morally right or ethically right to claim, or should there be a window where maybe space of a year and a half where relatives who can prove that maybe are next of kins or any close relative or even distant, that they maybe were related to this person, should there be a sort of an allowance to make sure that these people come forward before the government actually takes the helm of this money? We're talking billions of money here.
I know. Actually, what that law provides, it's not any different from how they deal with dormant accounts in banks. So, but there is a window. If you don't transact for 9 months, they will give you notice, 1 month's notice, that we're going to suspend your account. Then they suspend the account or block it. Then they give you another notice that we've suspended the account for another 1 month's notice. So during that time, you're supposed to come and say, oh, you guys, I'm still interested. Now, if you don't respond, then they block it, and then they transfer the money to the central bank, the Bank of Uganda. And the Bank of Uganda keeps it for 7 years. So during the 7 years period, your next of kin can come and claim, your relative. So it's a window of 7 years. So if nobody shows up after 7 years.
This is actually very educative.
Yeah,
7 years.
7 years. So they take it to the consolidated fund and it becomes part of public money. But it's what happens to bank accounts which are declared dormant.
If we were to look at again on the fintech side, the Uganda Securities Exchange is out there. One could be very excited. We have a boss. We have a stock exchange with us here. And how do we leverage fintech and all these digital platforms to make sure that ordinary folk can actually be a part of the stock exchange, which is, of course, the Uganda Securities Exchange? Are we thinking in that direction, or, you know, is it still the Bryans of this world who wake up, get the Daily Monitor, they see the treasury bill going for this much, or an auction is happening at Bank of Uganda, you get excited, you go, you call up your broker. Is there a way to harness the power of the digital side going forward? And again, I want to think proactively here.
Well, no, I think it's going to be some time. But frankly, I think the pace at which the capital markets are developing, the securities markets, is not the ultimate. It's very slow. It's a very slow evolution.
And what's holding us back there? Because the last time I spoke to the CEO of the Securities Exchange, there was a conversation around demutualizing. Now, as a lawyer, you definitely know that, well, for the Securities Exchange to list on the bourse itself, the Uganda Securities Exchange listing, as is the case in Kenya, you need to first demutualize. Now, that has also dragged. Do you get the sense that maybe that's something that's taking this forever to actually happen, to get the confidence of our own Securities Exchange?
I think the underlying problem is it's kind of commerce, dealing in securities and trading shares and making a profit is new to us, most of us. I'll be frank with you, even, I mean, sophisticated people, educated people really don't do that kind of, they don't deal in securities. Well, I don't want to name names, but I think it's only one of the initial public offers that have taken place in Uganda in the past few years. I think the last one wasn't actually very well subscribed. So you can see it's a culture thing. It's not our kind of business. I would rather get my money and go and trade.
And Stanbic and I think it was also Umeme that had a very good, they had a good roadshow and, as opposed to the last one. Cipla, maybe not so much. We got excited when Telco was about to list.
Yeah.
And again, let's face the fact, well, I don't want to go on the institutional investors side because East Africa-wise, our regulations do kind of dictate that we kind of keep our money here in the region. But like you're saying, it's quite interesting that ordinary folk here and there, we're not really thinking about, let's get into a fixed income. I can get, 20% when elections are around the corner. I also didn't say that. But how do we then change that? And I bring that up because it's the power of people in the innovation space, people like you who understand the law, yes, but also are into the fintech side to come up with such, mind-provoking innovations.
No, it is largely determined by the market. You can have an innovative product. You can say, I'm selling my shares at 10%, and nobody will buy them. People don't either believe in that or they have other priorities. I'd rather go and buy, stock my goods from China and come and make a quick profit and move on. So the market has to grow intellectually and then substantively. So it's going to be a very slow evolution.
Brian, isn't this the argument of the egg and the chicken?
Something has to give.
Yeah, because if you're to tell me that you have to wait for the market to grow, and I tell you that if you go to Chikuba right now and you promise all those guys who move around with the 50 million in the back of their car that you can get returns on a stock market at this much, in the comfort of your phone by downloading an app, and you get to pump this much maybe in a fixed income or this much into the Uganda Securities Exchange, I'm sure they would buy into it because you're being proactive, as opposed to you waiting for the market to evolve, and you get so many Arnolds out there who understand repo rates for them to buy into that idea. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud.
No, I think the younger people may readily buy into it. But people who are set in their ways, they have their own way of doing business. I don't think they would. It will take a lot of convincing for them to. Yeah, so perhaps it's up to the younger generation to bring that kind of stuff up.
And that's where you are. Brian, before I let you go, any final remarks when it comes to maybe the biggest challenges or what you're looking forward to post-COVID-19?
Well, COVID-19 was totally unexpected. It had to make us rethink how we do business, how we live our lives. So I think the biggest challenge is going to be to readjust and try to keep up with the new normal and find out. Well, the biggest challenge for now is surviving through these periods, and then probably adapting and then see how we can adjust to the new environment.
Brian, was a pleasure to have you. Brian Kalule, who's with the FITSPA, just giving us a sense of the new National Payment Systems Law and lots of talk on the fintech side and also some finance in there. He's also the guy with the fancy suit. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more Morning at NTV after this.
Thank you.